It's Monday. Is it Monday? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Monday. So sick of this racist crap. This racist crap. This racist crap. I'm happy where I am, where everybody's miserable. I know how to do radio, 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 radio. So sick of this racist crap. This racist crap. This racist crap. So sick of this racist crap. This racist crap. This racist crap.
Man, that song goes on a lot longer than I remember. But it's relatively new, so I guess that's why I don't remember. Anyway, all right. Yes, listen to Nodak and hit the like button. It's a nice thing to do. It is. All right. I didn't really know what title to come up with. And in the midst of this, I thought, damn, I should have drawn one of the characters from the news stories. But I'm going to stick with it and just different images that I collect. Yes. To inspire me to do this image of not really a character per se, but just for funsies. We'll do this one in rather quickly, as I will have to depart to go do New York City Crime Report. And then I got to put together my Nailsin show for Saturdays, Mr Nailsin Show. So stuff like that, you know. I mean, I was kind of hoping I could squeeze one in for a morning stream, but I mean, who am I kidding? That's probably not going to happen. I'm going to be exhausted. Got really sick yesterday from, I assume, this lack of sleep. It could also be the medication, but not as bad today. So that's something. So this will be a little strange. I do have a character that's, which would be yet another knockoff of a knockoff. Of there's been several of attempts at this in comic books of sort of redefining with knockoff characters of basically, typically it's like Superman and Batman, and then sometimes even Wonder Woman's thrown into the mix. And there was quite a few. Some are just rather forgettable. But of course, Squadron Supreme that Marvel did. It's actually got a few interesting titles in that. But then there was The Authority, stuff like that. But Astro City, that was an interesting series that did some characters based on those. So for instead of Superman, you had a character called the Samaritan. Yes, a good one, but they just called him Samaritan. I mean, he burst on the scene, and in their world, the Challenger explosion never happened because this superhero. Well, it did happen, but this Superman-like superhero showed up and saved them. Of course, in the real world, we didn't have a Superman, so of course, it didn't turn out that way. And people, the press was, swarming him and who are you and all this, and he said, "Hey, I'm just a good Samaritan," and he fled the scene. It was a long-winded story. He was actually a man from the future, and preventing the explosion would prevent this terrible future that he had come from. So he succeeded. So his timeline no longer exists. So he's kind of just stuck in the current world and begins life as the superhero, the Samaritan, because, well, what else is he going to do? And apparently the trip through time is what granted him his abilities and stuff like that. Anyway, that's the Superman one. The Batman one was a mysterious character, all in black, like Batman, called the Confessor, I believe. And he had this bright, glowing crucifix over this black outfit that he wore. And he took on a sidekick called Choir Boy. And the Choir Boy discovers the secret of Confessor, and that he's not just some guy who's really good at fighting or anything like that, akin to Batman. No, he's a vampire. But originally, he was a Catholic priest who was seduced by a vampire, and but he still has his morals and everything and control of himself. So one of the ways he keeps himself in line is he wears that cross over his chest, which is painful for him, which is akin to apparently one of the things like monks would do, would kind of beat themselves and stuff, because the pain would give them focus to deny their lusts and whatnot and all that. I don't know, but anyway, that was the idea. Uh, but and he later got killed, and Choir Boy sort of took his place, but he had to use like technology and stuff to match the abilities that the original Confessor had, because Choir Boy was just a normal guy. Uh, but anyway, so that was the other thing. Finally, the other, and I'm already blanking on hers. Damn, but they did do an origin story on her. But Winged Liberty, or Winged Victory, I believe, was the Wonder Woman of the team, and she had these wings, and there was magic involved and stuff like that. And she and the Samaritan dated, and all this kind of thing. But basically, that was the three of them. So eventually, I thought, hey, I would come up with these different knockoffs for the basic DC characters for my parodies and whatnot. And of course, ended up with Night Knight and coming out of all that. But one character for the Samaritan, I was calling him Utopian, but since then someone else used the name. Like Mark Miller used Utopian for his Jupiter's Legacy thing, and so I'm like, well, it's not going to be able to do that. Instead of Confessor, it was End Timer, and then for the Wonder Woman one, it was the Eternal Flame is what I called her, and she carried this giant staff with the torch on it, and there you go. And of course, she was her outfit was mostly white and gold, and then she had this helmet, and that was the deal. Other times, she was just naked. but she always had this sort of sash that instead of a cape or anything, it was just this, this red sash that would just was floating around. You don't really know how it does it, but there's sorcery and magic afoot and all that sort of thing. And so that was the three of them to form that, and went back and forth. I do have an idea about how I could fit them in with the night world and that sort of thing. Maybe one day. So it's kind of I guess it's who this character is. I really hadn't really given it much thought. I just found this image of this model posing, and she's got some weird, I don't know what it is. It's one of these artsy fartsy things they do with fashion models. Might have been for the Pirelli calendar, would do a lot of images that were all kind of surreal with beautiful naked women. A couple of them there was one of them, I forget what year it was, and they had a bunch of these, naked models. And I guess they were dancers because a lot of it looked like ballet dancing poses or whatnot. But, and of course, I was like, wow, look at all these cool naked chicks. And after a while, I noticed, wait a minute, what are they? They are wearing something. They had these helmets on. And it was a helmet that actually formed a mask and had these sort of wings on it and everything. I was like, cool. It's like superhero stuff. I don't know what the inspiration for it was. It was all strange and bizarre. They had other, women dressed up as like folklore characters and that kind of thing in it. So I don't know what the hell was going on there, but it looked cool, and quite a few of them had those helmets. I don't know. I always wonder what became of those. But that was the Pirelli calendar, and not just anyone could get one, And it was produced by the Pirelli Tire Company, and so sometimes there would be like tire treads and stuff in it, because this is about tires. Really, I thought it was about naked girl. Well, that too, but So anyway, where is it? One of these days I'll use one of the other ones. But oops. Stay on target. Stay on target. But it's just not enough room. So I don't know. I guess this is the eternal flame in one of her just hanging around moments. But there was like the idea, I think, was taking the archetypes of those characters to certain extremes. So sometimes, they'd be more godlike than they really are in the comic books and whatnot. And more times than not, the Wonder Woman was just basically a goddess overall in a lot of those depictions. So when Alan Moore did his America's Best Comics run, he didn't really do a Superman. He did Tom Strong, who was owed more to Doc Savage. But Doc Savage was a huge influence on the development of Superman. Just pretty clear that was the case. Similarly, the Shadow, of course, is quite the precursor to Batman. So it's kind of interesting that those two are there, and then eventually you have Superman and Batman meeting and all that type of stuff, even though that was not the original intention and so on. But nevertheless, that's how these things work out. So Tom Strong takes that position. For Wonder Woman, he made the character Promethea, who was, completely of a goddess, and certain people became a host of this spirit, I suppose. And in the initial iteration, it was this teenage girl, and some elements of it kind of started off like this would be typical comic book uh, uh, character, and say, oh well, there's some magic, and this girl stumbled into it, and eventually it gets to there were several hosts over the years, and she can communicate with them and all this sort of stuff. Uh, there was even a man once who became the goddess and all this stuff. Um, but he used a lot of the imagery of goddesses in art and whatnot to depict the character, rather than just being a woman in a costume who fights bad guys and stuff like that. And it was colorful and interesting, but it really not much in the lines of an actual narrative of story. It was basically kind of a tour of Alan Moore's fascination with magic and all that sort of stuff. Uh, Visited through the confines of a supposed story, which there really wasn't one. But it was an entry. He originally had started, which it was a shame it didn't get continued, because I was actually quite interested in it, because he did Rob Liefeld's uh, characters that were Superman and Wonder Woman knockoffs. So you had Supreme was the Superman knockoff that he did, and it ran for a few issues here and there, and different people messed with it. Then Alan Moore got a hold of it and really just dove into the idea of him being Superman, really. And you didn't get Alan Moore back on Superman, and never will. But it, had he done that, you kind of see the type of stories he would do, and it was embracing the sort of early years of Superman, certainly what's referred to as the Silver Age of Superman, and kind of the fantastic world that he dwells in there. And instead of being abandoned as silly, or oh, I don't know what to do with that, it's kind of silly and childish. But Alan Moore had the chops and ability to make use of all of that and embrace it. And so it was a good run of Supreme that he was doing. But it's a small company and didn't have reach, and sadly ended up being canceled. But he was going to do all of the characters. He was going to do a version of Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and I think they did eventually publish like maybe one or two issues of that. I can't remember. And then Glory was the Wonder Woman character, who was more in line with the superhero archetype and the aesthetic than Promethea was, certainly. But you could see a lot of the elements that ended up in Promethea. He was in that mindset with Glory, and which depicts the character more of this sort of kind of ethereal, goddess-like character, and which is, and it basically kind of an exaggerated form of them, because if that's why it kind of, the only way to go with it is where he went, where it becomes a bit even more surreal, and a bit detached from the basics of narratives concerning like adventures or what have you, because the actual goddess powers is just too damn powerful. Is this one out? Maybe. Maybe I have to get. No, that's the only one I got. Jeez. Sometimes it just pins just don't want to cooperate. But because of that same nature, eventually it's like, well, what else is there? What's the point of reading all of this when it doesn't really go anywhere? And it's just like, well, it's abstract. It's sort of an avant-garde approach. Um, to, I don't know, exploration of divinity and whatnot through the feminine. But how far can you go with that? Well, because then eventually it gets repetitive and whatnot. But the art was beautiful, uh, so you did get that. So I don't know. And then he got pissed because uh, that see stream. I can't remember all of it, but it came under Wildstorm. So I don't. I'm trying to remember now how. But I guess he pitched that in the America's Best Comics after the. Yeah, that's how it happened. He pitched that to Wildstorm, which is Jim Lee's Image Comics studio, after Liefeld couldn't continue on with his company, which I can't remember what was he calling it then, Maximum Press maybe, I can't remember. Uh, so he went over to Jim Lee's company and was setting all that up. Little did he know that Jim Lee was negotiating with DC to buy his company, which Alan Moore had vowed to never work with again. Um, he was deeply involved in setting up this whole new line of comics. And so he just said, well, there's got to be some kind of buffer or firewall between. So, I mean, the Wildstorm imprint, for the most part, was to maintain its own separate thing. So it wasn't having to do with DC's other properties, but it's once they buy it, it's theirs. And you know better than that that's not going to last. But anyway, it was a cool line. He had a bunch of great titles that he came out with. Once again, he's comes up with different, and a lot of it is just takes on stuff before. But it was funny and clever here and there, and but it ran its course. And really, the only one he kept up with after that was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I think that the volumes he's done since then have nothing to do with Wildstorm or DC anymore. But eventually, they brought the Wildstorm brand into the DC universe, which was a mistake for those characters. But that was mostly Jim Lee's uh, own properties that he himself had a heavy hand in creating. Wildcats and Stormwatch and the Authority and stuff like that. Authority was really Warren Ellis brought that, and then followed by Mark Miller, made that what it was. And really, it was a title that was a creature of its time, and probably should just be left there. Because since then, no one's really, even Warren Ellis, they brought him back to try to relaunch Wildstorm, and it was dull. It was really dull. I mean, it's like he had lost his ability. Really, the Authority was interesting and whatnot, but he did this series called Planetary. That's probably his best. He did another one called Spider Jerusalem, I believe, but I never read it. Or no, not Spider Jerusalem was the character. The title was Trans Metropolitan, I believe, and I never read it, so I don't know. Maybe it's really good. But Planetary was really cool. But it's reminiscent of Alan Moore in that it's kind of a tour of Pulp Fiction, pop culture entities of the 20th century is kind of what it is. But and that's one that I always thought would have made a great series given the budget. But considering what's happened over the years, still not all that trustworthy of it. But I doubt that would happen. I mean, I suppose if James Gunn is like a massive success with this DCU initiative he's doing, he might have an opportunity to see something like that. But the problem is Warren Ellis got Me Too'd. Some women reached out to him in the hopes that he could open doors for them in the comic book industry, so they had sex with him. Well, they didn't get any careers in the comic book industry, so he got Me Too'd. Just he doesn't really qualify for it, but that's how that goes. But a lot of the authority, and they want to make something of the brand, they're going to have to pay him because those are his ideas. So they announced there would be an authority movie. One of the authority characters, the engineer, is in the Superman movie. So I guess certainly the plan is to go forward with that. However, I stand by the idea that Wildstorm characters like Authority and whatnot belong in their own universe. They have yet, none of the stories they've done bringing them into DC Comics works. It just falls flat. They actually did a Superman and the Authority series. It's terrible. Just awful. So and a lot of them, they're knockoff characters. They're all this idea is that there's some commentary on established superhero archetypes and whatnot. So you can't have them be together. And you could do some one-off where they cross over some multiverse crap, and that's all it is. It's for the gimmick. But to clutter all this up with those guys when you have plenty enough to begin with, and I think it's a mistake, but that appears to be the plan. But it all hinges on whether the Superman movie works and whatnot. We'll just have to see how that works, or if it works at all. Okay. All right. I guess I can cover this one up. And I'm going to have to take my leave. Not a lot of people showed up, so I guess it'll be all right then. All right. There she is. So I'll play this little cartoon I did some time ago. One day I'll actually finish it, and then I'll come back to color this in Photoshop.
And now it's time for the world's greatest superheroes band together as friends to justice. They are the best friends. Early one morning at the Hall of Superdom. No better way to start the day than a nice view of the sweetest cheeks on earth.
Yeah, I hear you, best man. Maid of Honor sure makes it easy to rise and shine.
Hey, watch your mouth, pool man. My admiration for my girlfriend's assets is not an invitation to your crude, sleazy commentary.
And
by the way, I can smell the beer sweating through your pores. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with your slacking off around here. We're superheroes, damn it! How are we supposed to maintain a stellar reputation when one of us passes out or poops his pants on occasion?
I don't know.
You don't know, huh? Well, I do. Either you get your act together, or I'll give you the boot. A team operates with teamwork, and I can't have a member of my team face down in a pile of his own puke in the middle of a crisis. Are you listening?
Yeah.
You understand me?
Yeah, I understand, man. I'm sorry.
Yes, you are sorry, Pool Man. The trick here is for you to stop being sorry and be a man who can stand tall in his tights.
Hey,
What is it, Wingman?
General Wilcox is on the horn. Says he's got a mission for us.
Can Poolman overcome his addiction? Will Best Man trust him to be able to perform on the team for General Wilcox's mission? And just what is said mission? Find out in the next exciting episode of Best Friends. Best Friends is a Nailsin production. All characters are written and performed by me, Douglas Nailsin, with music by Kevin MacLeod and other public domain sources.
Unidentified woman. Now, this is also from the New York Post. The first one I read was from the Daily News. The New York Post had more of a, I guess, a detailed sort of report on this, because it says the woman left behind a handwritten note talking about stress, then just walked to the edge and jumped, according to sources. Bottles of medication were found in her apartment. A source said, looks like depression. Local resident Dimitri Wallace, and this is where it gets interesting, because depression is not that interesting. It's, you know.
It's depressing.
It's depression, yeah. It's just, and people always think they're depressed when they're not, like, you know, legally or clinically depressed. Yeah. I mean, 'cause it's a word that has, like, two meanings. You could be just like, I'm really down, I'm sort of depressed, or you can be like, no, I'm about to jump off a fucking building with my dog.
46 floors, was it?
Yeah, 46 floors.
I'm surprised she didn't explode.
I mean, it doesn't say that she didn't. Maybe she did. I mean, I guess she did. I'm sure that, you know, her dog that she had was a rescue, which I'm sure he's like, thanks a shitload. This is not what I had in mind when you picked me up and saved me from death.
How long ago did she get him? Imagine if
I
she
wish
just
I
got him
knew.
like yesterday. Like, I'm going to save you, buddy.
I thought it would cheer me up. It most likely was as a result of the depression, right? Or to try to ease it, I would think.
Dog, you got 24 hours.
People you start cheering me up, or shit's going to get nasty around here.
I'm going to name you Zoloft.
Yes, I see that you're here, Nodak, and yes, Andy, depression is sad. Probably not the best way of dealing with it, but that's what she did. Yeah. Okay, let me turn the camera off so we can pay attention to the lovely world of Photoshop. Well, there she is, and I use the Painterly filter on this. Boy, it's really crude, but pressed for time. And look, I'm always going to mention the excuse I use because it's true. The camera's in my way when I'm drawing this. Anyway, let's touch up a few things here. Make sure her eyes have their complete lashes. Girl, you'll be turning heads everywhere. Really? Giggle, giggle, tee hee. Oh, yeah. Okay. Make sure she doesn't have any, boogers hanging around. That would be rather unsightly, even though you could see it. But that's ironically what makes it unsightly. Yes. So I don't know, her hair just does that on its own, It's almost like it forms a giant flower, flowering above her head. Ain't that sweet? All right. And now to put flesh upon the form. Well, actually, the color of it. There we go. Hey, it's almost like painting. Yeah, kind of. except without all the mess, you know. Put that in there. I'm sure there's some spots that need a little more. But again, pressed for time. Yeah. Remember, she's doing a bit of a twist here. Come on, baby. Let's do the twist. Well, she did it. Going to need a smaller size for the fingers because they're very small. They're very small. Some might say dainty. Some. And by some, I don't refer to all. Why I said the word some. Just to be, clear. Yeah. Yes. I don't know if I can run that Zoloft the dog cartoon anymore. I forgot about what's his name was in there. Jeez. I get in trouble. But that's the way to go. Most people won't soon forget, except for people who've never heard of it. So, but yeah, that was a real story. This woman just got the dog, and then was all sad and depressed, just about life in general, and decided to end it all with the dog. And it's like the dog just moved in. It's like, well, what the hell? And I suppose the thinking is, oh, who would care for the dog? I don't know. I mean, somebody would, I guess. At least give him a chance. Maybe she thought her body would buffer the impact and the dog would survive. But you could have just left him in the apartment. That he definitely would have survived then. I'm no expert, but I think he probably would. Okay. So this is the sash, or something thereof. Something of a sash. Ooh. Twists around like no other piece of cloth. So the plan is to do this. Put together a Mr. Nailsin. Well, as soon as I get off of here, I got to go do crime report. Then after that, I'll put together Nailsin Show and hopefully have a Nailsin ratings video. I still got to. I did a review of the Watchmen cartoon. Well, I might be able to record the audio for it, but I probably save that for like Monday because I'm so exhausted and worn out by the time Monday comes along. Like, I could probably do something when I get home that morning. And then I was like, oh, dear God. So, yeah, I'll probably put the Watchmen thing in. But basically, like for tomorrow, it would be just basic reporting of rumors on future Marvel films that may or may not come to fruition. And then, of course, the Daredevil trailer. Just saw that not earlier today, and it doesn't really tell you a whole lot. It's just like, wow, it's really violent, and so you think, oh, it's going to try to be in keeping with the original Netflix show uh, as much as possible, considering what they've already established with really stupid shows like She-Hulk and Echo. But that's like your first introduction to this. Well, I guess technically speaking, he's supposed to be the same Daredevil that was in the She-Hulk show. Yeah. Because there is a scene where the yellow mask is there, and that's in keeping with the original Daredevil comics. He originally had a yellow costume, and of course, the joke would be that whoever designed the costume for him just didn't tell him what the colors were because he's blind. I mean, I know technically he can see better than those with sight because of all his super duper pooper scooper senses. But that just means, his measurement of distance and everything is better than yours. But when it comes to what you're wearing and stuff, he doesn't know. What color shirt is it? It's no idea. So it's kind of like, I don't get it. It's like you're wearing this costume. Well, yeah, that's my disguise. So people don't know I'm Matt Murdock. Yeah, that part. But you would have thought it would be all red because, like, you're the devil. He's like, wait, what? What do you mean? What color is it? It's yellow. Yellow? Yeah. Holy crap, that's why I can't sneak around and stuff. So eventually he gets the better outfit. I think it was the great Wallace Wood who ended up changing that original design. Said, hey, let's just make the whole suit red, And when he briefly did the art chores on the Daredevil comic in the 60s. And he was right. It's a better design. I mean, I guess it was Jack Kirby who designed the original, but, he didn't always get it right. And then when Wallace Wood went over to DC, he introduced Power Girl, and she originally did have that boob window in her suit because she was blessed with massive mams. Even though she's the alternate universe Supergirl for the original Superman, at least in that iteration. But she had a few more attributes that Supergirl didn't. Well, two of them anyway. And that was the original design. And I guess later on they said, hey, wait a minute, we can't have that. So some busybody covered it up. So it was just basically, she just had this white suit on, Later on, Alex Ross, God bless him, brought it back for Kingdom Come, which is a alternate future of the superheroes, And there she was in her boob window glory. And I appreciate that. But that was Wallace Wood, Because Wallace Wood liked to draw ladies. And he drew a lot of ladies. Very shapely and often naked. They can't do that in superhero. So, but, compromise. How about a boob window? And eventually someone said, no. No, well, not everybody's cool, Wally. Wallace Wood is easily one of the greatest comic book artists who ever lived. Incredible skill, was one of the masters of the EC comics. And he's the one who drew the Super Duper Man comic thing in the original Mad and all that stuff. But he was a very tragic figure. He kept having these horrible headaches and eventually suffered strokes. And don't really know exactly what the problem. I don't think they. I don't know. Did any investigation to see if he had tumors or anything? I don't know. But it was so bad it wrecked his marriage, and he married again, I believe, but that fell through. For a while they were doing pretty good, but he was just so miserable all the time from that, and so he drank and he was a chain smoker, and uh, that didn't do him any favors. And so I think he had two strokes. It was one, and it really messed up his ability to draw, and and then eventually he had another one, and after that he said, "Well, that's it," and did himself in. And just couldn't take it anymore. It's all very sad because he had all that talent and more than most, and spent a lot of his time being miserable. If he hadn't been dogged by that nonsense, who knows where he would have ended up. But then again, a lot of great artists, they all get screwed over and stuff. You know, it's the old story. Oddly enough, one of it's like Bob Kane, who gets the credit for Batman. He really wasn't that great of an artist, and he mostly just traced over other people's work, stuff like that. And really, Bill Finger is the guy who wrote the stories with him. Uh, really deserves certainly co-credit, but a lot of the Batman stuff of Batman is him. I mean, even the look of him, because the original look that Bob Kane did was just some guy with black bat wings and red tights and a Zorro mask, and that was about it. It was Bob Kane who said, "Yeah, I want to change that up a bit." And instead of wings, how about a cape that kind of looks like wings or something? You know, oh yeah, okay, they did that. But Bob Kane, unlike most of these guys, did very, very well. This is because his father was a business lawyer. So whatever deal they were setting up for him, his father came in to look over everything. He said, "Yeah, you're not screwing my son over like you do these other guys." He knew his way around this stuff and protected his son, and so he had quite the sweetheart deal. So a lot of Batman stuff, he was rewarded rather handsomely, as opposed to, well, certainly Bill Finger, who got nothing. He died in poverty, penniless, still hanging around comic book office begging for work. And someone even did a comic strip making fun of him, and he died not long afterwards about him constantly trying, because he was in dire straits, you know. And so he, you know, there's all this work that's certainly, you know, has gone on to achieve billions, and well, doesn't get to appreciate any of it. Jack Kirby, of course, kind of screwed over by Stan Lee. You know, I mean, Stan Lee was just out in front, taking credit for everything. There wouldn't be a Marvel Comics without Stan Lee. That's true. Stan Lee was one of these guys who he understood art and that sort of thing, but he also understood the business world, and most artists don't. And that's the advantage he had. But there again, someone had to go to bat for the whole thing. You know, a lot of these suits, you know, were never really going to understand it. So you needed somebody like Stan Lee to be in between all that. That being said, he took a little too much credit for things, and some of the things demands that Kirby might have been unreasonable and stuff like that overall, which is why he at first quit in a huff at Marvel and ended up at DC for a while, and ended up going back to Marvel, all that kind of thing. But it's also true. There's absolutely no Marvel comics without Jack Kirby. I mean, none of those characters. He laid some claim to Spider-Man because he did have a Spider-Man character, but that's the one that became Spider-Man. That's not the character he was working on. And Spider-Man really, Steve Ditko, you owe a lot to, but Stan Lee, had to craft it and put it together and stuff like that. So it's not like he just flat out stole it from them or anything like that. He's just taking more credit than he should or should have. And Stan Lee, man, I mean, he really only became very wealthy late in life. He was chasing this stuff for a long time and doing a lot of promoting the brand and getting it on television and that sort of stuff is what he ended up doing when he was no longer involved in the comic books. And eventually it got there. But man, the way he was abused and stuff on the way out, absolutely disgusting. But that's Hollywood. All right. Well, I guess not too bad. The drawing, I mean. Yeah, it's like the comic book artist getting ripped off is very similar to like rock and roll artists and guys who actually wrote the songs and all that. They never got a dime for it, or very little anyway. That kind of thing. The same thing with movies and television. There's probably some poor bastard who really came up with the idea, got screwed over, and then the property gets milked until it dies. It's because the original visionary behind it is no longer around to do it, or they got booted out. Stuff like that. They just got to sit there at some shit job, if that, wondering what might have been while their creation makes some asshole billions of dollars. It's just like, holy shit. What did this guy do to deserve that? It's a constant tale that will continue, sadly. No matter what you do. All right, there she is, a goddess of, I don't know, hair with body and hold and scarlet sashes. Somebody had to be the goddess. I guess it was going to be her. Okay, I've got some chats to answer, and then I'll have to take my leave. I got to go do crime report. Yeah, I'm here. Yes, Andy Matchton. Hey, Andy. It's good seeing you. Andy Matchton. Doug, can you paint me towards a Photoshop tutorial for coloring? Point you. Look, I just did a digital painting, so I haven't really looked into one in a long time. Because this is a very old version of Photoshop that I have because I'm cheap, and I've worked on some of the newer ones. They got all kind of cool extra bells and whistles on them. But any one of them, I guess I could look up a few and see. These days, Photoshop's a subscription based deal, you know. Um, I mean, I don't know, maybe because this is Photoshop 7, I believe. That's how old it is. And it still works. So maybe you could find one on eBay and learn on that one if you want to do it the same way I do it. But any number of those, I could look up some and get back to you and say, hey, maybe this one's pretty good. Because there's stuff even on the old one, I don't know how to use it. I never bothered. I just use it for what I know how to do, and I'm good. And that kind of thing. You know, could look into that. Nodak, I guess that's the point. I don't know. Andy Masterson, Dainty. Yes. Nodak, Dainty Love by Soft Cell is a great song. Dainty Love. Dun, dun, dun. She was really, really effeminate, as a feminine woman should be. With dainty feet, dainty hands. Dun, 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 dun. Andy Manson, does the costume have green stains now? Possibly. Nodak, Dark Side of the Comics with your host, Doug. Well, yes. Yes, it's not all cheery and happy. There's a-holes everywhere you go. And some of them stink. Nodak, happy times. Well, sometimes. Some of it was happy. Nodak, is there a story of a comic book writer that ended happy? I'm sure. Let me think. I mean, the ending is always sad. Everyone's upset, you know. I mean, even if they were really suffering an awful lot, you know, and well, their suffering's over now. That's what it takes. That's pretty sad anyway, you know. Really, the best death is just you don't even know you're in any kind of trouble. You just go to bed one night and you don't wake up, you know, sudden death, heart attack, something like that. That's the best way to go. You know, it's going to be rather shocking. You know, family members find out you died in your sleep or something, and they'll be sad and everything. But at least they can take some sign of solace that you didn't go out in a horrific manner. Yeah. Swift -1 talking about the turquoise person. Now, remember, on Pat's show, we did see the turquoise girl. I guess she's probably out already. She got in trouble. She was shoplifting and all that. Swift -1 says, hello. Hello, Swift -1. Nodex says hi also. Andy Masterson, I have an old version of Photoshop. So maybe it's the same one, huh? Is it Photoshop 7? If so, then very similar to this sort of thing. Andy Masterson, that would be great. Thank you. All right, I'll look into it. Andy Masterson, heart attack at 95 years old with 2 hookers coming and going at the same time. Boy, that's a headline, isn't it? And we know that's happened multiple occasions. But that again, yes, I guess sleeping in your sleep and not aware of it is one way. But that's another way that's, well, not too bad. Although he might have a bit of embarrassment, like, oh, damn it. Yeah, I couldn't take it. I'm going to go out. You know, but well, you know, he went out doing what he loved. So there's that, you know, you can mention that in the eulogy and there's stuff like that, you know. It's like, oh man, now everyone's going to know I visited the massage parlor. They knew. Something of that nature. Anyway, there we go. There's our, again, goddess of, well, body and hold and hair, and a scarlet sash. That's what she does with her immortality and supernatural powers. It's something to do, you know. Anyway, I got to go do crime report. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you had fun, and hope to do it again soon. Probably won't be until Monday, or perhaps I'll do another live Sunday comics. I'm not sure. But we'll see how that goes. More than likely, man, I'm running out of time here. So probably will be live Sunday as I read some public domain comic book. Trust me, it's fun. No, really. Anyway, Nodak says, looks great. Thanks for the show, Doug. Well, thank you, Nodak. And thanks for reminding people to hit the like button. And I must point out, strange as it may seem, the like button loves to get hit. That's just its thing. That's the way it is. Don't question it. Just do it and move on. Now I have to move on. Have a good night, everybody.
It's Monday. It's Monday. Yeah. It's Monday. Woo! So sick of this racist crap. This racist crap. This racist crap. I'm happy where I am, where everybody's miserable. I know how to do radio. 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 So sick of this racist crap. This racist crap. This racist crap.